Today I have Brent Farese on the podcast. Brent originally trained as an IP attorney doing work on patents, trademarks and tech licensing, and he then spent the best part of a decade in private practice before then going in-house as an Assistant General Counsel at Digital Assets, which is an enterprise blockchain firm based in New York where he learned to code smart contracts himself. Today he is the co-founder and CEO of Aline, the agentic legal AI platform built for in-house legal teams. Now in this episode, Brent and I dive into why he's best in context engineering rather than just fine-tuning models, the difference between Control F, semantic search and a fully agentic search over lots of documents, and what he's doing to build Aline to make them the best AI-powered CLM. Awesome. Brent, welcome to the Best Practice Podcast. It's an honour to have you on the show. I think we're speaking at a really interesting time in legal tech, especially, April has just come to a close. It's been very active, lots of new capital and money in the space, lots of acquisitions, lots of acqui-hires and people moving around different companies, big deals, big contracts being signed everywhere, lots of noise. But hopefully we'll cut through some of that noise today and talk about the market, talk about Aline and where everything's going. But could we start with a quick introduction from you and what it is Aline does, put simply?
Perfect. Anyway, good to be here. I'm Brent. I'm the CEO of Aline. We are an agentic legal AI platform for in-house legal teams that handles the entire lifecycle of all in-house legal matters, contracts, research, and more. Everything through intake to AI redlining, through to negotiation, even through to e-signature and contract intelligence.
Awesome. And Brent, I know you trained as a lawyer a few years ago now as an IP attorney, and then you progressed into the GC role in-house, and now you're CEO and co-founder at Aline. Do you want to walk us through that a bit? And then, what was the moment when you thought, okay, I really need to start like a legal AI startup?
Right, yeah. Still a lawyer, still practicing, getting AI to do more of my practicing these days, but we're still doing a whole bunch of practicing internal at the company. Yeah, I started in private practice as an IP lawyer, doing patents, trademarks, tech licensing, just always really interested in technology. I had a mechanical engineering background and computer science background. So practiced for about 8 or 9 years in private practice, and then I went to in-house to work for an enterprise blockchain software company. Got really into crypto, smart contracts. I'm just super interested in the intersection of law and technology, like always have been. So smart contracts came around and crypto tokens, and I started to work for a company called Digital Asset in New York City. They're still doing great. Shout out to them. They work with some of the largest financial institutions in the world. So I was working negotiating all their contracts as a AGC, doing HR, employment matters, research, product like licensing, terms of service, whatever. But part of my job, which was great, was they had their own smart contract computer language. If anybody's ever heard of Ethereum and Solidity, the smart contract language for that popular blockchain, they have their Digital Asset has their own modeling language. So part of my job was learn this computer language and build some prototypes of cool smart contract financial instruments and stuff. So just a ton of fun doing that. I really enjoyed being in-house and working with and for business people, but I just saw firsthand all of the friction with the contracting process. And we went through, what catalyzed it for me is we went through a CLM RFP process, vetted a whole bunch of, CLMs. We picked one, implementation, 6-month implementation. And I was maybe the only one on my team that could figure out how to use it. It's too beefy, too difficult to pick up. And I'm a computer software engineer, and I go, this can't be the way to build a software product, right? And so I left and I co-founded this company. And then the AI tech wave started to hit.
Tell me about some of the contracts you had to negotiate, like in the crypto space. Is it like with like the ledger people and I don't know much about
Yeah,
crypto, but yeah.
there's just like financial instruments, derivative contracts, like
Mm,
all these things, all these financial instruments that enterprise blockchain companies were putting on Ledger, with the promise of having a decentralized ledger that's across a lot of other financial institutions and banks, right, to like really improve the settlement of those transactions and all this stuff.
mm,
So you would like code in, these complex derivative contracts and other things like that. So it's just kind of it's highly financial like contracts because that's kind of where a lot of the value space was, but super interesting technology.
mm. And what do you think that being in house just generally showed you about like legal work in general that you didn't really see in like the private practice space?
You just get so much more enmeshed in like the products, the services, the nitty gritty details of like that as an outside counsel or in a law firm, you just don't, you're not sort of paid to become that level of specialist on
Mm,
an individual company. So you just go a lot deeper, which is fun. And
mm,
then, you just have like business objectives and goals that you're trying to march towards quarter over quarter.
mm.
And you get to be a bit more creative because you get to be kind of quasi, the best lawyers that are in house are quasi business people, quasi lawyers, and increasingly now more these days, quasi technologists.
And so you were assistant general counsel. So general counsel, you're if you need like external counsel support, you'll like get them all to line up with their RFP and their pitches and why those law firms think they're the best.
Right.
As a like a crypto company, what kind of things were you as a very like tech forward company? What kind of things were you looking for in like a law firm back in the day?
Yeah, and in the blockchain space, it's kind of like we really would have to rely on outside counsel for like regulatory analysis,
Mm,
especially because you're at the cutting edge of that, of a new frontier of like of uncertain regulatory treatment of these blockchain based networks and things like that. So regulatory analysis was a big thing that we relied on outside counsel for.
mm,
And then financings were always a fun one. We feel like internally as an in-house counsel, we like would have enough gravitas, and we leaned into the financings and helped and everything. But
mm.
there's so much money involved, and there's such high risk with the financing that you always sort of get outside counsel involved, and
Yeah.
that
That's
ends
for
up
like second opinion, I think, a lot of
yeah,
the
it
time.
ends because you don't want to mess something up at that level of importance, and so that's fun. That racks up outside counsel bills like
Uh,
a lot.
so you were talking earlier about being like a quasi engineer turn like business person turn lawyer, like just having loads of skills to make you like well rounded. Did you like in the early days of building a line? Did you do much of the coding yourself, or did you like get a CTO in, or like what did it look like in the early days?
We have a great CTO, Tim, who
Mm,
was previously at like B2B SaaS companies like 2U in New York. But I was and am still doing a ton of the AI engineering now,
mm,
right? So like I had a minor in computer science, and then I went to digital asset and did more software engineering there as I described because it was just like part of my job responsibility.
mm,
And so when we started Align, like just doing a bunch of the web development, and then the AI wave started to hit really in 2022. And I'm a full-fledged AI software engineer now, like with the best of them, which is fun, which is
mm,
so I'm really trying to combine the knowledge of the space and actually building with the team the AI in different areas that we're leveraging.
mm. And so I think, CLMs historically have been very much like deterministic in that sense, in the way
Right.
that like, it's like almost like a document builder, like if this then that. It's very like it can't really go wrong. And now we've got AI that comes in, and a lot of people describe AI as probabilistic, right? So it's almost trying to guess the probability of what the next word's going to be to then like kind of fill the space, which can be have pros and cons in like legal circumstances. Um, Looking into like the AI like kind of aspect, is there like a particular model that you like always use, or are you like pretty model agnostic? So you're like, I don't know, going with the best one for the right task. Do you like kind of triage the task and then give it to the best model in that sense?
Yeah, we have a whole, AI chat in technical terms, a harness
Mm,
that is routing any specific legal request to the right model, the right subagent in our system that handles that specific task or set of tasks,
mm,
drafting legal research, searching your repository, analyzing your repository, redlining, document comparison, right? So we use the best part about not necessarily being a frontier model company is being to use the best of those, right? So we use Claude a lot for drafting and redlining. It's very great for that.
mm,
We use OpenAI's models, GPT series models for document analysis and reporting.
mm.
You know, research is yet another model that's actually hooked up to legal sources of data to do research. And so, you get the best, you sort of like get the best in one from the consumer standpoint or the user standpoint. It's just one chat interface, right? But it is a pretty sophisticated system under the hood.
And what are your thoughts on like fine tuning models? I saw a report that came out from MIT the other day. Also done a LinkedIn post, plugged my own post on it about how if you over fine tune models in like medical and legal circumstances and scenarios, it can almost remove the safety guardrails that they have somehow. And so they're doing a whole lot of testing of a legal tuned model compared to just the base model. So the base GPT 5.4 or the base 4.6 Opus, whatever it was. And a lot of the times it would agree to give an answer to things it's not really meant to give an answer to. Do you do any like fine tuning of models, or do you just kind of stick with the base model? I was also speaking to another legal tech founder, and he said that in the early days they were trying to fine tune their models, but over
Yeah.
time the base models have got so good and they've progressed so well that they're just kind of betting on that, and they've kind of stopped actually fine
The
tuning.
amount of capital that it takes to train a model or
Mm,
even fine tune a model well, and the time that it takes is fair amount, right? So you saw this in the early days with the Har that's how Harvey started, right? Is like this promise of fine tuning for legal, and the frontier labs just quickly supplant that because of the amount of capital and the amount of resources they have and can bring to bear to these models. There's different ways to get a lot out of a model. Fine tuning is one, but just
mm,
really, really good context engineering is and when I say context engineering, that is semantic search systems to pull the right context from the right files or the right legal research areas to bring to bear to this user's query or from within their system. Marshaling all of the data that they have in their organization or from their files, and
mm.
doing that as well as a human lawyer, it gets you is one, a very hard engineering problem to do well, and two, it gets you a lot of additional output, like in the legal realm, compared to fine tuning. Like just having a good, well built harness for that marshals context engineering, like can increase. I'll have to drop the study that I read in the show notes or something like that. It
Mm.
can increase the output of for a specific domain by a significant amount.
So how does semantic search, how is that like better than say like Control F or like RAG?
Right. Because like if you're just control Fing, you're doing keyword based searching, you're very likely to lose to lose or not capture the relevant sections of a document or a file or whatever that you're trying to find. So it's searching, so one level is Control F, a second level is semantic searching, yet a third level is agentic searching, which is doing semantic searching, cross-referencing definitions from one file to another, capturing amendments or linked or related documents, parent and child related files, to bring into one nicely buttoned up context that's needed to answer queries or to edit files, right? So like there's multiple levels of it's a lot of juice to squeeze in that, making that better.
Where's Aline Align, sorry, at the moment on those levels? Are you at
We,
agentic search yet?
yeah, we're sort of at the agentic search capability. We built our own very sophisticated semantic search and indexing engine that indexes all the files and all of the knowledge and everything that comes into the system. And now we're increasingly becoming more agentic, where we're cross-referencing files, pulling in information from those cross-referenced files, cross-referencing definitions across files or within the same file. And so that's where the technical hard part is, but also where you get a lot of the improved output over just like your garden variety frontier model. you know and that's just like one aspect of a legal AI system that lawyers, that real lawyers need, versus a off the shelf model.
What are your thoughts on, like, because we've seen very recently, Legora have released their AOS, so like their agentic operating system. Harvey have released loads of agents, and so they're like these pre-made agents that you can go and deploy within the business. How close are we, do you think, to fully agentic AI, and how do you at Align define agentic? Because a lot of companies will just say, okay, agentic is just multi-step and delivering an outcome. But does it mean something more to you at Align?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't don't see any products that are fully autonomous, even in the coding realm. There's nothing that you're unless you're like on the bleeding edge. Like I saw Claude Code's co-creator just runs like tons of coding agents on loops in the background, and like other coding agents are fixing the mistakes of one coding agent that ran, and but ultimately at the end of the day, he or somebody else is in there to review the output and approve it and get it done.
Yeah.
So what I think is that the legal space is traditionally a laggard behind more sophisticated technology spaces like software, right? And it's because if you look at the software engineering landscape, it's just software engineers build tools for themselves, and they're so good. They're so good at it.
Yeah.
They're so good at it that they can conceive of the most sophisticated version control systems, the most sophisticated agentic layers over top of those version control systems, the most sophisticated agents and multi-agent systems, that operate in the cloud and operate in the background to do large scale software engineering work. I still think that in the legal realm, we're 2 to 3 years behind, maybe 2 years behind agentic coding. Agentic coding is, because I use it all day, every day. It's so good compared to and I've used every legal AI product, including our own, including, competitors. And there's still a gap. There's a huge gap for us to close. And so I think humans will be, especially in law, humans and guardrails will be in the loop. And what you are going to see, and where we're progressing, as a company, is longer running, agentic loops and more of the relevant context being brought to bear in those agents that are running for that human that's in the loop. And that requires doing hard things like building a full-scale version control and diffing system, something that we're doing right now, building essentially an agentic, GitHub, Git for law, right? For files and documents. Like there's certain base layer things that we don't have really good technology solutions for in the legal space that like feed themselves into the agentic layer to make the agent layer that much better. You need.
So we should really be looking into software engineers, the crystal ball for what's to come.
I think so. I mean, I run agents that run in the cloud that run for 25 minutes on the coding side that do a lot of large scale work, right? And that there's a tipping point that has happened. A lot of people kind of talk about it in publications and stuff about Claude and GPT series models in October, November, December of this last year, and things just getting materially better. Right, that's a function of the models getting better, but the harnesses, Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, the harnesses are so much better on that side that it turns it to a tipping point where those agents can do so much longer running work, and agents can check other agents autonomously, so that when you show up to look at it, it's mostly done. It's mostly in a good spot. So I don't see that we're there yet in the legal side. We're working on getting there, and some of the others are as well. But it's fun. It's fun to build.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to. So we've already seen like ChatGPT Atlas, and it can come and take over your browser. I think Claude's got a similar thing now. I think that would be really cool to have almost in the legal space. The other thing I think which would be quite nice to have is Claude have recently just got a new feature called Dispatch, where you can have your phone and then have your computer running over lunch, and I can get an email whilst I'm out dining with my friends at McDonald's and then I can dispatch it back to my laptop back in the office, and I get back to the office and it's all done. That would be lovely.
Yeah. Those are great things where you're just it's like another, employee of yours. You're like, oh, you almost got it right, but go off for another 20 minutes and fix it up. And then I'll come back 30 minutes later. And it's not like with another colleague, sometimes that would be days later that you get with some of the cloud-based agents, you're back an hour later and you have the next output to review, So the agentic layer is super interesting, but I also think that the human side of our business is something that needs to be built into products more. Just building a truly collaborative product that helps to deal with the human component of working with people. Typically legal is the center of a smaller department of thousands or hundreds of other employees that are all, these are my lawyers, internal lawyers, right? And so we think they need much more collaborative tools to work collaboratively with agents, but also to work collaboratively with those other departments that, need to get eyes on the legal work that's being done.
Today's episode is brought to you by Aline, AI native legal operating software for in-house teams. Connect your drive and align red lines against your playbook. Turns every clause and obligation into a queryable repository and answers questions in plain English, like every MSA expiring in Q3. Teams at Superhuman, Sophos and Instacart save hundreds of hours every year using Aline. Start your free trial at aline.co, that's ALINE.co, and use code George for 25% off. I think a lot of it also comes down to education, right? I think there's a lot of tools and all these amazing legal departments, but there's not enough education from maybe the vendors being done, because a lot of the knowledge and the gold dust sits in people's brains, and if it's in people's brains,
Right.
it's no good to anybody else, especially if they go to like leave the company. And so it's
Right.
trying to get that down in paper, in playbooks, even though the word playbooks makes me cringe, um, into agents or whatever,
Right.
so
Right.
it's repeatable and runnable for other people, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier, like, just like previous CLM systems being kind of more rules based and sort of more difficult to
Deterministic.
use.
Mm,
Yeah, deterministic. There's a lot of sort of like there's a lot of knowledge that goes into building up those rules based systems. Once you get them to start working, then they work pretty well.
mm,
It takes a lot of effort though to build them up. And then if you need to change them because some process changes or other things like that, it's quite difficult to do that.
mm,
In this new world, it is more probabilistic, but it is a lot faster to, get productive and to make changes, which is
mm,
frequently, you always think, hey, this is how the process should work, and 3 weeks later, that process has changed, right?
mm, yeah.
It always happens,
Mm,
and I think I see some cool stuff out there of like, hey, building siloed agents and things like that. I think that as the technology matures, like you maybe will need less of those things and can sort of like plan with your legal agent to develop a plan for the project that you're doing and then
mm.
execute, which is a faster, lightweight way of kind of building an agent on the fly.
I think, a lot of legal AI startups have started with contracts, which makes sense, right? Claude is really good at marking up contracts and negotiating contracts, and the world is run on contracts. But um, I think a lot of people in the media get annoyed, including me. It's like, oh, we're the best at doing NDAs and MSAs, but a lot of lawyers, including myself, we don't do NDAs and MSAs. The world of law is much more than that. What do you think the next realm is beyond contracts in the future? And
I
do you think
I think
Aline will be expanding into anything else? I don't know, like real estate paperwork or something like other than
we are.
Okay.
I think largely that the practice of law is super document heavy.
Mm,
Doesn't matter what kind of document it is.
mm,
Legal brief, research paper, like or real estate paperwork, right? Research memorandum, electronic
mm,
terms of service,
mm,
employee handbooks, policies. Everything is, it is knowledge work. We're marshaling, the law, understanding the law, the regulations, and then translating that in a document form to, who needs to see it. It could even, be emails, but it's all document based.
mm,
So we have taken the approach at Align, and we did this from the start of probably building the most sophisticated legal document editor, word processor,
mm,
cloud-based collaborative word processor that just integrates directly with your agentic layer, right? And I think what we're expanding towards is entire intake request-based system that our agent picks up and does and works across many documents, does proper version control, has version control tools and functions to it to run differences between the current version and the last version, or have proper version control in terms of this is our main document, and if people want to submit edits to it, to submit them as for lack of a better word, a pull request or a new properly diffed version. So
mm,
we're moving to a world in which you need those core hard pieces of functionality, and then you can layer a very sophisticated legal AI on top of it to do all that work, on behalf of the lawyers.
And do you think the hallucination rates and the guardrails are developed and there enough to be able to, I don't know, have someone from the procurement or the sales team or an HR themselves be like at Aline in Slack or whatever they're using, and then be able to ask for advice or ask it to do this document without it even having to touch the legal team?
Yeah, that's what we're getting asked to do and build on the, we just like listen to customers and prospects, and like that's what, the ones that are on the leading 25% of, but big important companies that are like want to do that. They want guardrails in place.
Yeah.
But hey, let me email your AI. Let me, mention your AI in Slack. And then in our world, we have templates in our world that include the documents and the process to be followed. It's like our AI picks up the right process to use and then runs it through some loose guardrails for, the humans that are part of that process to pick up and do. Right? So that's entirely happening for sure.
So zooming out a bit, what do you think like the future of law looks like for law firms, right? So,
Right.
Systems and operating systems like Align will almost mean that for internal counsel will mean that they don't have to spend as much on external counsel at the law firms. Do you think like Align is displacing like some of the outside work because now so much of it can be done to such a high quality internally using Align? And do you think that is like kind of shifting what firms are getting hired for?
You actually see kind of like, startups that are coming up like AI law firms too, right? As the kind of like, hey, if we're to take this to its logical conclusion, where to build an AI native law firm from the start. What does that look like? And some of those companies are doing really well because the AI is, kind of a mix between technology and services sometimes, right? I mean, that's the promise of this for many industries, including coding, including accounting, including finance. I just saw Claude release like whole finance, plugins and things like that, right? So I think paradoxically, that like this will all just result in more legal work. And what will happen is law firms, the best law firms, will figure out how to drive their services through this agentic layer if they're smart enough to build it. And you see some of the startups, that are AI law firms, that's what they're building. Services, key, important advice from humans, that have all the context with an agentic layer that is helping those humans provide the services faster, and with better quality. And whenever you decrease the cost of like, the provision of services, it's like just more services are provided. It's
Classic
just like
Jevons paradox right there, right?
it's just what it's like, what happens. Because like everybody also wants like quality legal services. Like if I could send and get quality legal services for most of the things that we do internally in my company, like we would do it. And if you're able to, it's just that people hold back from doing that and, DIY. They DIY themselves because they don't actually have a product or a services firm to go to get that quality work.
Yeah. So hopefully, I guess with AI and agentic AI, will make the services cheaper, hopefully, and therefore more people can afford legal work rather than just turning to ChatGPT or Claude to do it for them.
I think so. I think that will very much happen, and it will very much happen that the law firms that adopt it and take technology first approach will increase the provision, their business, and increase the provision of their services to more clients. You know, so I think just I love I mean, it's like my own I don't know, hopefully self-fulfilling prophecy, or maybe I think I'm just lucky. Is like I'm just always interested in technology. Here comes this AI wave. It's increasingly making the practice of law more technical. There is still a massive need for legal expertise, true legal expertise, and that will play a big part in this wave. But, you know, the practice of law, in-house or external, is becoming more technical. It's becoming more, you know, the people that will learn how to marshal these agents and do it at scale. There's a lot of, you know, value to be, and a lot of, you know, profit to be provided there.
What are your thoughts on a lot of these foundational providers going more and more like towards the whole like knowledge work sector, right? So Claude, for example, they've got Claude Co-work, and when they were doing a lot of the marketing for that, it was, you know, AI for the knowledge worker. That's the way they put it. You've also got Microsoft, that massive old incumbent over there. Who even knows who Microsoft are? But they, you know, it's like the other week they released a legal agent within Word, right? And we've got Claude within
multi-trillion-dollar company. Who's Microsoft?
But I feel like Microsoft really haven't been like their name. I just don't see around as much. Like
not in the agentic, you know, AI side. They maybe they'll come catch back up, but there's certainly other players that are making bigger waves.
Yeah,
you know,
they're definitely. You've got ChatGPT as well. Like, I think in January this year they've released ChatGPT Healthcare, which is like, you know, for doctors and for patients, and it's, you know, their first stab, if you like, at a very heavily regulated vertical. Healthcare is a bit like legal; it's, you know, very regulated. So yeah, I want to know your thoughts on the model providers themselves. Going into legal, and then all the legal AI startups like not doing as well. I don't know. What do you think?
What my thought is that it's kind of maybe a longer answer, but I think if you are building a more narrow point solution, then them coming in the way that they came in is really not great for you, right? But my perspective is that these large frontier labs, these large model providers, you know, they're picking trillion-dollar opportunities to dive into and invest all of their time. And some of those, and so like that's why they build in the coding realm and have built Claude. Claude Code is a whole product and a whole platform that they will continue to invest in. And then they tinker on the edges of some other categories that traditionally are still big categories, but they are not necessarily the size of categories that's going to make them marshal that much resources into building a truly great platform for those categories. And so I think legal is one of those categories in which they come in and build some very interesting tools on the point side of things. Claude for Word to do some light redlining and other things like that. That's great. But they are not going to, as far as I know, you know, talking and just even being in touch with those model providers, some of the legal teams in those model providers, I don't think they're going to build a Claude Code for legal, which is to say an entire platform that, you know, does contract. That does contract intelligence across hundreds of thousands of files, that links files together by their amendments and SOWs and other things, and plugs that into an agentic chat layer to bring that legal grade intelligence, that context that you need. You know, that does an entire version control system that's also plugged into the agentic layer to achieve the really detailed work that lawyers need to do. So maybe they do. If they do, I kind of would be shocked, but like it's the same thing with the financial side too. Like I don't know that they're going to go build NetSuite. You know, like that's the equivalent of what we're talking about is Anthropic going to go build an agentic CLM or just the next version of a platform that's like great for legal use? I don't think so. So I think a lot of their entry, including Microsoft, et cetera, into the area is just great because it's just going to get regular lawyers like into using AI, and then they're going to realize, hopefully that they need an entire, cloud-based agentic layer that's deeper than just those narrow solutions, and then hopefully companies like Aline and there's other companies out there that are doing great on the in-house space. We raise our hands and go, hey, we're here with the comprehensive solution, the comprehensive platform that you need.
Yeah. I also think, a lot of legal tech buyers, especially at law firms, they quite like the fact that going with Harvey, going with Legora, or any legal AI vendor, a lot of them are very model agnostic. And so you're not betting on one model. If Claude were to go down,
Right.
if Claude 6.0 were like really shit, then it's fine because you can just switch the button and go back to
Right.
the GPT series or go to Google Gemini. So yeah, I think definitely that, and I think also like just the speed of implementation of any tech tool within a law firm is so slow that I think it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really interesting because last year and this year we've seen all these deals being made, all these LinkedIn announcements. Oh, we're so proud to partner with X Magic Circle law firm. I think it's going to be really hard and interesting to see how often these like platforms switch between each other,
Right.
or if the lock-in is, I don't know how long the lock-in is. Maybe they're there for 3 years, 1 year, but it's going to be a massive, project and
On
change
the
thing.
on the law firm side, it's kind of quite interesting, with the bigger companies, the Harveys
But
and the Legoras and the others that are in there.
whereas I would say actually in-house teams, because they're a lot smaller and they're a lot more price sensitive, possibly, that they will be more willing to jump around from LegalFly to GCAI, from GCAI to Wordsmith, from Wordsmith to Aline, that kind of, yeah. So
Yeah, and we see,
the-
we see that happening. We sort of see these similar players around in our space too. Most people are looking. They don't necessarily want to maintain 4 different solutions either, but they really do want one platform that actually does all these things like incredibly well, and that's hard to do, right? So that's there's a moat and a stickiness into attempting to sort of be that.
player, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Brent, I want for you to like look back at younger Brent a few years back when younger Brent had just come out of law school, but younger Brent is maybe in, I don't know, in 2026 like I am, and is, I don't know, training to become a lawyer, a junior lawyer. What kind of tips or advice would you have for junior lawyers, and maybe what tips would you also have for junior lawyers if they have an amazing idea for a legal tech startup? Do you think the door is still open? Do you think there's too many competitors now, and you might as well just not bother?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't trust me, right? Don't come compete. Don't come compete with me, please.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
entirely. I mean, I still think that there is. I still think that there is room for competition. I would say the room for competition on the law firm side, if you're going for a wide horizontal platform, is kind of tough because of the amount of capital that's gone into those. So like if you're going to do a law firm based like product, make sure you know the narrow piece that you can serve really well.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to build a product into there and have a viewpoint about how you will expand from there. And then any like junior lawyers, like wherever you decide, if you don't decide to start your own company, like, and you're interviewing at places, like really just dig into like the culture or the ethos of like the firms or the people that you're going to get involved with.
Yeah.
are they gonna, if you're interested in this technological wave and you wanna learn that, are you gonna actually support that? What sort of resources what sort of budget or resources do you guys have in the firm to do this? And if they're like, oh, we're spinning up we're just working on it now and this, that, and the other thing, they may not be serious about it. So try and, if you want to get trained, or you want to, I got trained before the technological wave, but I found a good IP only law firm that was, formative in my training. Just try and, if you can, try and get into a place where you while you're being trained as a lawyer, you can foster this curiosity and build things on the experiment, build things on the side, that they encourage you to do that. And they're not like, hey, make sure you go bill all the hours, and like you have zero time for this, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's like, so try and find that, or find a cool company, find a cool company that cares about it, and go in house and build some tools on the side, For me, like. Starting companies, like any advice, if you're say, hey, what's my advice for people starting companies? Starting companies is hard. It is 100 times harder than I thought it was going to be. Like flat out. I don't care, what anybody tells you, or anybody who's even doing successful, they'll probably tell you the same thing. Like, unless they're just like somehow on the easiest rocket ship that they've ever got on. Like, it's hard. So build things on the side, and then make sure you're over resourced if you do decide to try and take the jump.
I read that, most startups fail, but when they do fail, it makes you a much better employee with everything that you've learned, even if you were to go and become an employee again.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm a lawyer that has an AI training, really technical training, so. Like I said, lucky that I guess the technological wave came through. But if my company doesn't work out, it's gonna work out. We're gonna hopefully crush it. But if it doesn't, you make sure you're in an area where you're learning, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to bring that expertise somewhere else.
Awesome, Brent. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you, and where can people find Aline?
Go to align.co, please. Check us out. My LinkedIn is just linkedin.com / Brent Farese. We can share it in the show notes. Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, please. Follow us on LinkedIn. Set up some time to just connect directly. I love to meet with lawyers or other technologists that are in this space.
Yeah,
my calendar's open, and it's fun meeting people that are doing interesting things.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.